Hello, and welcome to Studmonger's Guide to Blocking for Fighting Games. We're going to be using Them's Fightin' Herds as our example, but this kind of applies to most fighting games. And wait, don't leave yet. I promise that if you stick around, despite the fact that we're talking about blocking, you're going to see some cool stuff, especially at the end. So stick around for that. We're going to start with some basics for beginners, because I am a beginner in this game, to be sure, and even in like fighting games, 2D games in general, I don't have a ton of experience, so I thought it would be fun to have a small little segment where I go over, and occasionally beforehand learn myself, some basics about fighting games, and then attempt to apply them in matches and maybe go over some of the matches and show some analysis and just show myself learning and show that process and getting better. So today we're going to start with blocking, and we're going to start with the absolute basics. So hold back to block. There are basically two standard positions that you're going to be using. If you're holding straight back, you're going to be able to block any mid attack and any overhead attack. So anything that hits you high and anything that hits you just kind of in the middle, not high or low, just any basic random attack, like most jabs and such. So the other option, of course, is down back, which is going to continue to block these mid jabs, but it also blocks low attacks. So generally, all jumping attacks are going to be high, so you'll need to block them by holding straight back, and most crouching attacks are going to be lows, and you'll need to be blocking them by holding down back. So as a quick example here, that is Arizona's jumping C, and if you don't block that crouching, you are going to get hit by it. And then you have Arizona's crouching jab, and if you don't block that, so if we just try to hold back, she catches us. And then if we want to show the other one, I suppose we can here. It's going to be that move. And if we try to hold down back here and then let her use that move, we just get hit. But if we do it the opposite direction, right, if we're holding back, okay, if we're far enough away and we're holding back, just going to do this, we block it. And then same thing with the low. If we are just holding down back here when she does this move, we're going to block it. So that's your basics for blocking. And the standard thing we're going to do, which requires block switching, which we will get to a little bit later, is a jump attack into a low is really good because your jump attacks will always cancel the instant they hit the ground. So the second you hit the ground, you're actionable again. So if you see here, we'll jump in the air and immediately try to do Oleander's jump B, and then we'll try to do a jump jab right afterwards. And you'll see that it does come out. But we have to finish this whole animation first. Whereas here, you'll see that if we hit the ground first, we kind of cancel wherever she happens to be in the animation, and we can just immediately go into a jab. So that's very powerful, and we'll deal with that on the blocking and attacking side here in a bit. So the next thing that we want to look at is the cross-up. So if you have to hold back to block, then if you can get on the other side of your opponent, suddenly they're holding forward now. Forward doesn't block. So that's the basic premise of a cross-up, and we'll get a basic example here while we're at it. We're just going to have Arizona walk straight back and nothing else. So what's going to happen here is if we try to do a jump-in attack like that, she's going to block it. But if we can get onto the other side of her, like this, by jumping forward again, you'll see the second time, even though she was still holding back, we were on the other side. So now she's holding straight forward on us. And that's obviously not going to block it. And then, of course, this allows you to do a high-low and a left-right. And then, of course, you can try to go low on the opposite side of the cross-up, which gives them more time to block, but gives you that fourth option here. So if we want to see what that would look like, there it is. So obviously we give her a little bit more time to realize that we've gotten to the other side of her, but we are also making it so that she doesn't just have to hold backwards, and every time that she sees that, she's only got 3 options to deal with. We've now added, even though it's a little bit easier to deal with, this 4th option that she now has to contend with. So that helps to make it difficult for her to block. But regardless, as long as you successfully block that first attack, you're going to wind up in the dreaded block stun, right? So if we go to blocking and first hit only, this is why nobody likes being in block stun, because basically the second that Arizona can stop blocking and is actionable in any way, she's just going to get hit. So if we do a button and then we do a slow button afterwards, you see we got the first hit there. But we don't have to give her that option once we've got her in pressure. We can do this instead. Look at that. There was no point in any of that where she would be allowed to press any button. She's not allowed to try to jab that. She's not allowed to try to reversal it. She's not allowed to try to throw it. She's not allowed to try to jump out of it. She is stuck blocking. And that is called a block string. In fact, it's called a true block string. It is a specific type of block string. Because not all block strings are true block strings. Block strings where there is no gap anywhere and the character can't jump out or press a button or anything. So the true power of the block string actually comes from adding these gaps. So you'll see that when I did that full combo, sure, she was stuck in block stun the whole time, but she also blocked the whole thing. And if that's our pressure, we're in trouble because we didn't open her up. She successfully blocked the whole string, and we don't want that. So the way that we're going to stop her from being able to do that is we're going to add little gaps. And that allows us to give them just enough time to push a button or stop blocking and get hit. And obviously, in certain games, if you can keep a character in block stun enough, you can still do high-lows. Like if you have a super fast instant jump, like maybe Tianhua might be able to do something like this, but I'm not technical enough to do that with 15 hours of playtime. But maybe she would be able to do a high into a low into like a really fast high, and all of that's a block string, and you have to block all of it correctly. So you have to block back, and then down back, and then back again. And it's possible that that whole thing is a true block string, so you can't push a button out of any of it, and you have to block correctly. But for most characters, and even characters who can do that, the strongest thing you can do is put little gaps in there, just enough to make it so that your opponent can do something, or you can, say, throw them. So that's one of the main ways that you're going to get pressure started, because if you have them blocking and then you don't allow them to get out of block stun, you can't throw a character that's in block stun. So if we are plus somewhere, and then we try to throw a character when we're really, really plus, so let's do, this is going to be really, really plus. Oh, wow. Okay, I thought it would be more plus than that. So let's try a little bit faster. Okay, well, I'm being made a liar out of by this game, but you should not be able to. Normally, you should not be able to get that. That might put her into a special state, like a stagger state, where that's allowed, where it normally wouldn't be. But for the most point, yeah, no, she shouldn't be able to do that either because she's blocking. Whatever. For the most part, you should not be able to throw a character that is in block stun. So just trust me on that. But those little gaps allow you to get throws and such. So that's really important. But the big thing here is that once you're in block stun, you can't do anything, right? Well, not exactly. So once you are in block stun, you actually have several different options available to you that you can try to use to get out of it. And a lot of people kind of like, they get to the point where they're blocking and they're like, oh man, I'm blocking and I can't do anything. And that mentality makes it so they're really bad at blocking. So you actually have several interesting options that you can do while blocking. The first one from this game, which is a fairly common like versus component, is push blocking. So obviously we can have the computer set up to do that automatically, but we don't want to do that because we want to show what a push block really looks like when it's not being done by a computer. In order to push block in this game, you have to hold backwards, you have to be blocking in block stun, and you have to press the two buttons that would make it normally be a throw. So if we make sure that our dummy is never going to block here, she will immediately go into... Okay, she should immediately go into a response here, but apparently we don't have it set up, so I definitely thought we did. So let's cause that to be set up real quick. Let's make that happen. So what we're gonna do is just go into the wake up options, pick recording slot. Oh, we just picked the wrong one. Let's try this. I'm good at this game, guys. So same thing. There we go. There's wake up 1. So wake up 1 is just a push block. And now if we knock Arizona down, we can see what she does if we don't push a button there, and you'll see she goes backwards and then she tries to throw. Because since she's not in block stun, the game then picks the next order that button combination does. And in this case, the next order that button combination for push blocking does is a throw. So how are we going to deal with this? Like, we had this thing, right, where we could make our opponent block switch because we would do a jump in and then go low. So they have to block high and then low really fast, and that opens up a whole bunch of cool mix-up opportunities because we have our opponent having to deal with two very quick inputs back to back, which makes it so that it's really hard for them to react to anything else that we do because they're stuck trying to deal with this fairly tight window where they need to go from holding back to down back. So obviously if we knock them down and then we do our high-low and they push block, it pushed us so far away that we don't even get our low mix-up. They don't even have to deal with the mix-up. So how are we going to deal with that? Well, Oleander has a special way because she has a mobility option that is not available to every character in the game. She's got a double jump. So if we bait this, we basically are expecting Arizona to do a push block, and we're going to do something that beats the push block. We're going to bait it. So we're going to say, hey, this is an option where push block is really good. You should push block here. And we're actually just trying to get her to do that. And that's what a bait is. So we can double jump, and she'll still throw. And you see we got a counter hit there into a combo. So that's one way that you can beat out the push block, is if you expect it and you just do a double jump, you'll actually get a counter hit combo off of the throw attempt. And that's going to be really good. And so you're saying, all right, Mr. Smart Guy, well, I play Arizona. And Arizona doesn't have a double jump. She's got a short hop, she's got a super jump, but she doesn't have a double jump. If I short hop, it's too early and it doesn't work. If I do a double jump, I go flying to if I do a super jump, I go flying to the moon, and I don't have that same threat of pressure that you do with the double jump, because when they see your jump, you definitely could do a really fast move. But I can't, because super jump brings me all the way up to the health bar. They're just like, I'm not going to block anything. You're way up there. How do I deal with this? Well, you're going to do an empty low. If you try to push block the aerial after getting hit by it, you're at the perfect timing to make it so that if they just do an empty low, they're going to counter hit your throw. And there's the bait. If you don't happen to have a double jump, or if you're in a game that just doesn't have double jumps, empty low is the way to beat that push block. So there's one thing you can do and some cool ways to beat it. The next thing that we're going to look at is going to be instant blocking. Again, this isn't in every game, but it is in a lot of games, and it's a good thing to know how it works. So we're going to go through it. It is in Fighting Herds, so that's nice. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little string here, actually a slightly different string than that. We're going to go... Alright, stand B into overhead. So if we let Arizona do this, and we block the stand B, and then we try to jab it, we actually both get hit. That is a perfect 5-frame gap in there. We're getting hit on the exact same frame. But the problem here, as you can see, is that Arizona wins that trade. Not only does her overhead do more damage than your jab, but she also recovers from your jab much faster than you recover from her overhead. So she's already back up and pushing buttons, in fact, so fast that the auto wake-up option of grab that we have there is coming out too early to even hit us. So she has all the time in the world to set up whatever mix-up she wants there, because we tried to push a button. And you're thinking, well, I mean, obviously you can block the overhead, but isn't there some other way that we could deal with this kind of pressure where maybe we would normally get frame trapped, we would have just enough time to push a button, but not enough for it to come out before we get hit. And we'll talk about that later on in an episode on pressure. But isn't there something we can do? And the answer in a lot of games is going to be instant block. So if we instant block this, and then push the button at the right time. Oh, that was not an instant block. And you'll see, it'll tell you if you get the instant block. Oh, we didn't quite time that either. It's hard, but there you go. See, if we do it at the right time, we actually win that trade now. Instead of getting hit, we are actually winning that trade with a jab. Now, obviously, it is a high-risk play, because in order to instant block, you have to be not blocking and then start blocking right before the move hits you. So, kind of self-explanatory. The name of the mechanic is essentially just the way that you do the mechanic, but it's risky, right? Because you're not blocking anymore during that time. So you might get opened up if your opponent puts a little gap into their pressure and then pushes another button right afterwards. But there's a payoff. Oftentimes you'll gain a little meter, or you'll have reduced block stun, which happens here, and then you're going to be able to kind of bully your way out of pressure that normally you would just have to hold, because otherwise you would just be getting hit. So there's another thing that you can do. In fact, those of you who are aggressive should love this option. It allows you to more reliably mash buttons on your opponent's pressure if you can get an instant block. So that should be a big part of your game plan if you're planning on bullying your way out of pressure. Try to get those instant blocks. Read your opponent. Learn their style. Learn the strings they like to use, or learn their characters' move speeds and that kind of thing. You can do that while you're in the match. And since you're blocking and there's nothing else to do, that might as well be what you're doing. So then this game actually has one additional thing that you can do on while you're blocking here, and it is going to be push blocking. So again, the way that is going to be guard canceling, my bad. And the way that you're going to do that is very similarly to push blocking. When you're in block stun, you're going to hold forward and throw. And when you hold forward and throw, you will use 50% of your meter, 50% of one bar, in order to do an invincible reversal attack while in block stun. So it's going to look a little bit like this. And that'll go through pretty much any move that you've got. So you'll see there that that just goes directly through my book attacks and it hits me. Well, how do we deal with that? So as the person who's blocking, this is a great option if you see that your opponent is going for a lot of like big true block strings, right? This is one of the ways that you can deal with a true block string, because even if they go for the true block string, you can just cancel your blocking into an invincible attack. And if they're not occasionally putting gaps in their pressure and seeing what you're doing or backing off, this is a pretty reliable way to get out of blocking. So another great thing to do if you like pushing buttons. So you should definitely consider it, but it does cost meter, so use it a little more sparingly, even though it's super strong. But if we are expecting it on the offensive side, what do we want to do about this? Well, there's two general options here. The first one is that we can try to trick our opponent into doing it at a point in time where they're not actually in block stun. So if we can do that, we can, again, make them throw. So one of the things that we did before is going to work again here. We're going to do a jump and attack, and then we're just going to jump again. And you see that we counter hit the throw again. That's what they were trying to do there. So, see, there's the throw. So, oh, we didn't quite do it at the right timing, but you can see you can bait it by staggering your pressure. And you can do that even without a jump in, so if you do it at the right time, you can kind of just do that, back off. You can see that, oh, they went for a throw. There's our stagger. We got them. So that's the first thing you can do, is stagger your pressure and make it so that they just whiff a throw instead of getting their counterattack. What's the other thing you can do? Well, the other thing you can do is bait it because it's super duper punishable. Oh, so Oleander, for example, has this teleport that teleports her back. It happens to teleport her pretty much just perfectly out of the range of these guard cancels. So let's see if we can figure out a string that lets us do that. Oop. Okay, that'll work. If we're fast enough. Ooh, okay, we still got hit there, but you can see the idea. We can teleport behind probably and make this work. Yeah, there we go. And so now she just lost 50% of a bar and didn't really even necessarily get out of your pressure. I think if we do it from further away, we might even be able to do this teleport back that I was trying to do. So yeah, there's the teleport behind, and there we go. Okay, so that seems to be more spacing dependent, but see, I'm new at this game too. I'm learning things as we go. But that would be another way that you can deal with it. And then in a lot of games, not necessarily this one, but in a lot of games, you can jump cancel moves on block. And if you can jump cancel a move on block, you can still bait this by doing the move and then jumping back and blocking, and they'll use their counter. And generally, these counters are super punishable on block, so you just block it and then you get a full combo for baiting it. So that's another thing you can do while you're blocking, and another few ways that you can handle it on offense. So next, we're going to look at jump blocking. So jump blocking is interesting because I think we're just going to do this. So jump blocking is interesting because it allows you to block both overheads and lows with the same back input. It doesn't really matter which one you're doing. So there's our input. So if we just run that again, and we catch Arizona while she's in the air here, you'll see she blocks that low, which is our sweep, and she also blocks the overhead, which Oleander has a standing overhead. This hits high, so you have to block that standing if you're on the ground. But if you're in the air, you can block both of them without having to worry about dealing with the high-low mix-ups. So jump blocking can be really good, and in some games you can use jump blocking to chicken block. So we talked about before, when you hit the ground, you immediately go out of the move that you're in, and you can use your actions again instantly. The same thing generally is true when you're blocking. So if you're blocking in the air, and you're just a fraction away from getting to the ground, oftentimes you will have less block stun than you normally would have, because when you touch the ground, any remaining block stun gets canceled by the fact that you're on the ground, and you're immediately able to push buttons again. And that is called chicken blocking. Basically, you intentionally block really low to the ground in the air so that you can get a punish on a move that you normally couldn't get a punish on, or so that you can be like plus against that move that you would normally be minus against, or basically you have less block stun, and thus you're able to do more things and have more options. And so that's really strong in games where you can consistently get chicken block setups. Then next, of course, we are talking about blocking, and we have to talk about throws. So throws are pretty simple, If you input the same motion as your opponent a few frames after they have started their throw, you will tech the throw, which basically means you will break out of the person's throw and you'll both get kicked back into like a neutral position. So we can actually show that here because all of the options that we chose defensively are also throws. You'll see that I can use that to show you how to tech a throw. Just put in the input about the same time as your opponent does, and you see that it kind of pushes you both back into a neutral position where neither of you really has a great opportunity. Like, we're a little too close here at that range for Oleander to be happy throwing fireballs, and we're a little too far away for Arizona to be happy like doing her normals and stuff. She's got some pretty good buttons from this range, but she doesn't have great pressure tools from this range outside of her stomp and her rope. And I don't know the specifics, but it's very possible that that tech throw distance is in a spot where like the rope would miss, for example. So oftentimes it's in a spot where nobody wants to be. It's basically round start position again. You're pretty much this far away from each other in a spot where rope probably goes just a little bit behind Oleander, and Oleander's fireballs can just get jumped in on. So nobody likes this range. Nobody wants to be here. That's kind of the beauty of a good round start. So then basically the other option to break a throw is to jump. If you are jumping, throws won't hit you, at least ground throws. So if we have this character just jump like crazy, you'll see that we can't catch this character. We can't grab this character. This character is trying to jump, and jumping characters are invincible to throws. So that's a really strong way to get out of throws. In addition, since you're usually, like, you have this recovery, right? You can see I'll hold backwards. We have this recovery. You usually also lose your turn if they jump out. So you're usually going to have to deal with their jumping at that point in time. If it's a regular throw, like we have here with Oleander, one that can be teched, then usually the punishment is that your opponent gets their turn, right? You're going to have to block their jump in, and you're going to have to deal with that. There are special throws, however, that require a command, much like a fireball input, and they're called command throws, or command grabs. And these moves are not techable, so if you get thrown by one, you cannot tech it. So the only thing that you can do to get out of it is to jump. So because they are a higher order of throw, because you can't tech them, they have less options that beat them. They're also usually much more unsafe. So if a character does jump out, they usually get a punish instead of just being able to get their turn. So you have to be careful on both sides. It's a higher risk, higher reward throw that beats blocks. So obviously all grabs beat blocks, whether you're stand blocking or crouch blocking, and that's kind of their point. The last thing we have to talk about is air throws. In this game, there are air throws. And obviously, one of the things that you're allowed to do to get out of throws is jump. But an air throw catches you if you're in the air. So you're already jumping. You can't get out of it by jumping. So this one, you can only get out of by teching. That's the only way to get out of that throw. So air throws are a little bit more powerful because they have the single way to get out of it like a command throw does, but every character has access to an air throw in this game. So you have a lot more instances when you can be in the air and have a really strong throw option, even if your character doesn't have any command throws. So that's really important to think about while you're thinking about blocking. And that's kind of the basics. And now we're going to go into just a couple of really interesting, somewhat intermediate to advanced blocking. So the first one we're going to get into is going to be called, this is the most basic one, I think, guard switching. So we already sort of talked about this. Basically, if we have Arizona jump in on us with a high attack and then go low, the only way for us to block that is to block high and then block low. So Let's do that real quick. So you can see that we started off there, and you might have to go back and watch it, but we started off holding back, and then we held down back. And that's a pretty standard required blocking sequence that you're going to have to do every time that a jump-in happens, because low attacks are faster than high attacks. So basically, if Arizona does her jump-in attack into a low attack there, I have 0 time to react. Now, she could do her jump-in into an overhead attack, because she has one. But that has a lot more startup. I have a chance to be able to react to that, or I have a chance to be able to, we're going to deal with this in a second too, we're going to have a chance to fuzzy guard it. So, what we're going to, but before we get to fuzzy guard real quick, what we're going to look at is actually a different mechanic called trip guard. So, this kind of gets thrown around a lot in commentary, and I feel like the way that commentators say it usually makes you think that trip guard means getting caught by the trip. That isn't it, actually. Trip guard is your ability to block a move after having jumped. So, if you jump, we'll have Arizona do this real quick. So, Arizona is going to jump for us, and then she's going to hold down back. Alright, so if we try to push a button on this, she will block it. You know, unless we catch her out of the jump startup, because we did have to hold up for long enough that she does a regular jump instead of a short hop, but if we push a button here, she's going to block it in the air, she's going to block it on the ground, she can instant block it. You see she instant blocked both of those. So she's instant blocking all of that stuff. And no matter what we do here, we can't hit her. She has trip guard. She is able to block our attacks, especially our lows. Usually that's why it's called trip guard, is because you can't block lows after doing a jump-in attack. But she is able to retain trip guard here, which means she can guard lows, or any other move. In this game, I think you can use any move you want to, after jumping. However, this game does, quote-unquote, have trip guard in the fact that if you push a button while you're in the air, you lose trip guard. So let's show that example real quick. So we're going to do the same thing, except this time we're going to push jump C, and then we're going to hold down back. So you can see there, if you were paying attention, you might again have to go back to look at it. We pressed jump C, and then we were holding down back well before we hit the ground. So we should, since we cancel all of our moves when we hit the ground, we should be able to block this. Spoilers, we're not going to be able to block this as long as I time it correctly. And you'll be able to tell if you do it correctly, because since Arizona isn't blocking all the time here, we might accidentally counter hit her out of her JC, right? So we're going to see that if it happens in 2 different ways. First, we're going to see the counter hit button, but second, we're going to see her have to tech on the ground afterwards. So if we hit her out of the air, she's going to get knocked down, and she's going to turn blue and have to tech roll on the ground. If we catch her just at the right time, though, we'll catch her standing, but still unable to block. So we'll be able to do like a full combo that we normally wouldn't necessarily be able to do. So let's see if we can get that going. The timing is a little tough. There we go. See that? There was no counter hit there, and we caught her standing on the ground. So she didn't get hit in the air and then knocked down. We didn't counter hit her out of her JC. She just couldn't block that attack because she had pushed a button in the air. She had a small period of time where she's on the ground, but unable to block. And that is the loss of trip guard. So this game does have what commentary would normally call trip guard. It has the ability to hit an opponent on the ground after they've done a jump attack, despite the fact that that means they have lost trip guard. Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those ones that I think just gets thrown around incorrectly a lot. Trip guard is the ability to block the move. You lose trip guard by doing a jumping attack. So, that gets us to our next interesting thing here, which is fuzzy guard. So, basically, the idea here is guarding with a specific timing that makes it so that certain moves will be blocked just automatically by the timing of your move. So obviously the first one we did is the guard switch for the jump in, right? The fuzzy is to block high and then block low. So you want to do that because the high is coming and the low is really fast afterwards. We have another move here that hits overhead immediately, right? Look at how much slower that is than this. So, I don't know if we can honestly do this very well with our Arizona, but let's try. So we're going to block high, low. Oop. So we're going to block high, low, high. So if we did that correctly, what's going to happen, and we might not have, so if it doesn't work, what's going to happen is she's going to block the jump-in attack, and then she's going to block the low attack. So if we do a high jump-in into low, she's going to block the high, and then she's going to block low. But since we did high, low, high, what's going to happen is if we do the jump attack, and then we do the high attack, she's going to have stopped it with a timing that makes it so that she blocks the jump in, would have blocked the low if we did it, but then is already stand blocking again in time to block the high. I doubt we can get the timing on this, but we'll give it a shot. Oh, okay, let's try this. Okay, I'm just bad at the jump in, to be honest. There we go. So she blocks the high-low there. So let's try it again. And do the high into overhead. You see, she blocked that as well. Now, obviously, we have this character recorded. So this character is doing the same thing with the same timing every single time, but she was still able to block my high-low and block my high into high, despite the fact that it's just a recording. So she blocked my high-low mix-up, and she didn't even have to guess. And that's the power of Fuzzy Guard, is the ability to time your blocks to make it so that your opponent won't hit you even if they go for their standard mix-up. Now, that's very strong, but it can be defeated by a equally powerful tool called a Fuzzy Guard break. So if we have Arizona just kind of chill here for a second, we're going to have her trying to crouch, and she's going to block all types of attacks. So here's what's going to happen. She's going to crouch, I'm going to do a jumping attack, and you're going to see she does her wake up options because I forgot to turn those off. Go away. Alright, so you're going to see that she just immediately goes back to crouching. Well, almost immediately. And that's what we're going to be taking advantage of in a second here. So you'll see that she wants to crouch, but in order to block this move, she has to block it standing. And once she's blocking it standing, she is in block stun, and that block stun forces her character to remain standing because she had to do a standing guard until her block stun is over. So if we just head over to the corner real quick, I think we're just going to like wave dash our way over. And if she is trying to block this move high, and then she goes back to blocking fuzzy. So she's going high-low, and we're going to turn that off as well. All these options are going off for the moment. Hopefully that push block after should be no. Alright, so if she's going to block her standard fuzzy on the jump in, which is high into low, then she'll still block that, right? And we actually force her into the crouch blocking animation by doing the low, because she's now blocking a low and has to block that crouching. So occasionally you can do the opposite of what I'm about to show you here. So what we're going to do now is she's going to try to crouch the second she can, right? And normally, if we just do a super fast jumping B, it misses. This doesn't hit because she's low to the ground. She low profiles our move. This is actually the same state that she gets put in on frame 1 of her anti-air, which is what makes it such a strong anti-air. You'll see that we can't hit until really far, really deep into the aerial attack if she's crouching, but her anti-air attack goes way up to like basically where Oleander's horn is, and that means she's got a huge hitbox way above her, but her crouching hitbox is what you have to hit. So that's why it beats out aerial attacks so well. So we can force her to stand, but if we just do an instant one, it just misses, right? So how do we break this annoying fuzzy guard? Well, here's what we're gonna do. We're going to force her to stand here, and then if she tries to crouch block immediately afterwards, she's stuck standing. And we can, at that point in time, do a double jump attack and instantly press the jump button. Her character's model, her hurt box, the part of her character that we can hit with our moves, is still going to be the standing hurt box. It's going to be a very high raised hitbox that we can hit really high with moves like this. Moves where, if she's standing, she would have to block them, like this instant JB. But she's going to be trying to block low, and she's not going to be able to block low because that jumping attack is an overhead. So here's a fuzzy guard break. She's going to block always. She's going to be blocking high, and she's going to be trying to crouch. So what we're going to do here is we're going to sweep her and do this jump in. So here's what happens if we catch her. Oh, and if you're wondering how I'm able to get this really tight jump in and stop the blocking, it's because of a cool thing called hit stop. Basically, whenever your character hits another character, the game actually pauses for a few moments, just a few milliseconds, to allow the players playing to more easily recognize that something connected in the game. So the game itself actually just pauses in real life for a moment, and that's called hit stop. So, last thing here, I know this is kind of dragging on and long, but here's the cool thing. Here's hopefully the cool thing that you're waiting for. She is going to try to block the next attack low, even though she can't, because it's an overhead. But we all know that that jumping JB, instant JB, should miss, right? It didn't. And that is how you fuzzy guard break. You fuzzy guard break by making them have a standing hurt box while blocking low. So if we do that again, we can stop that. We can have her try to block low. And we can get a full combo conversion off of that. And that is a reasonable explanation, I think, of how fuzzy guard works. Thank you so much, and I look forward to running some matches. Hope to see you there.